The desert night was a living thing, breathing against the canvas walls of Mark Vance's tent like a restless spirit. The expedition camp lay silent beyond the dunes, the last embers of the cooking fires fading to ash. He sat alone by the small oil lamp, its flickering glow casting gold across his hands as he studied the alien map before him. It wasn't a normal chart, it pulsed faintly, veins of crimson light threading through transparent film, alive in ways he didn't understand. The researchers back at base had warned him not to activate it in the field, but curiosity was stronger than caution. Humanity had come to this planet, Dareth 9, to find relics of an extinct civilization. What they found instead were myths that breathed. He rubbed his temples, fatigue clawing at his mind. The heat of day had given way to bitter cold, and the silence outside pressed against him, too still for comfort. He was used to silence after 3 years on alien worlds, but this one was different. There was a hum beneath it, low and rhythmic, like a heartbeat buried under sand. He was about to switch off the lamp when the hum changed pitch. A faint scent reached him, metallic, sharp, and sweet, like copper mixed with crushed petals. His skin prickled. The shadows near the tent's flap deepened. For a moment, he thought it was the wind moving the canvas. Then the flame flickered violently, and the air shifted, dense, electric, wrong. He didn't hear her enter. One moment the tent was empty, the next, she stood there, framed in lamplight. She was tall, almost unnaturally so, and her armor gleamed like obsidian dipped in starlight. Her skin was dark crimson, the tone of cooling lava under moonlight, and her eyes burned molten gold. She moved with the grace of something that had never been human, each step quiet, deliberate, predatory. "Human," she said softly, and her voice vibrated through the air like a low chord struck on a cello. "Your blood smells divine." His breath caught. He rose instinctively, his hand hovering near the sidearm holstered at his thigh. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded, though his voice came out rough, thin. Her lips curved faintly, revealing the hint of fangs. "Your kind built fires in my ruins," she said, ignoring his question. "You broke seals that should have stayed untouched. You woke things older than your sons." Her gaze dropped to the glowing map on his table, and her nostrils flared. "You opened it." "It was already active when we found it," he lied, though she would hear the tremor in his voice. "We thought it was some kind of signal relay." "It is a key," she said, stepping closer. "And you have unlocked a door you were not meant to see." He took a step back, his pulse hammering. "I'm just an explorer." "No," she whispered. "You are an offering." The words hit him like a strike. His hand snapped toward his gun, but in the space between blinks, she was in front of him. Her speed was impossible. One heartbeat, distance. The next, she was inches away, her hand on his chest, pinning him to the tent pole. "Your heart," she murmured, her golden eyes narrowing, "beats like thunder. So alive. So stubborn." The air smelled of iron and heat. She leaned closer, the cold edge of her armor brushing his shirt. "Do you know what I am, human?" "Vampire," he said hoarsely. "Myth." "Myth," she echoed, amused. "Your ancestors called us gods. Then monsters. Then stories to frighten children. All true, in their way." Her hand slid upward to his throat, but her grip was almost tender. "You carry fear like a weapon. I can taste it." He met her gaze, forcing his voice steady. "If you're going to kill me, get it over with." For a moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she drew back. "Kill you," she repeated. "No. You woke me, human. The one who breaks the seal becomes bound to it. You are not prey." "You are." She hesitated, her expression flickering between curiosity and restraint. "Necessary." "For what?" he demanded. "To live," she said simply. "You bled onto the map when you touched it, didn't you?" His eyes widened. The small cut on his thumb, now sealed, pulsed faintly in memory. "Your blood called to me," she continued. "It reawakened the covenant." She turned toward the tent's entrance, brushing her fingers along the canvas. Now, if you wish to survive the dawn, you will come with me. He stared at her, disbelief choking him. You expect me to walk out into the desert with a vampire? The alternative, she said, glancing over her shoulder, is to stay here and meet what else you have awakened. Something in her tone made his stomach twist. She pushed aside the flap, revealing the darkness beyond, the dunes lit only by the twin moons. For a moment, he saw movement on the horizon. Shapes rising from the sand, too many legs, too fluid to be human. His hand tightened around his weapon. What are those? Remnants, she said. Guardians of the old world. They hunger for blood, but only mortal blood. And you? He asked. I hunger for many things, she said softly. Come. He hesitated for one heartbeat, then followed. The air outside was freezing, sharp enough to burn his lungs. The night wind carried faint whispers in a language he didn't recognize. The creatures in the distance were moving closer now, gliding like shadows over sand, their forms twisting in and out of existence. Stay behind me, she said, her voice low. If they scent you fully, they will swarm. She extended her hand, and her armor lit with faint crimson lines, pulsing like veins. When one of the things broke from the others and lunged, she moved faster than thought. Her blade, curved and black as night, sang through the air, slicing the creature in half before it even screamed. The sand drank its essence, glowing faintly where its blood fell. Mark stumbled backward, staring. You, what are you fighting with? Old light, she said, flicking the weapon clean. Forged before your species knew fire. Another creature lunged. She spun, cutting through it with almost balletic grace. Move! She barked, grabbing his arm. They ran, the dunes stretching endlessly ahead, the ruins of some forgotten temple rising like jagged teeth against the horizon. The air shimmered with energy, the ground vibrating with each step. This way, she called, leading him toward an entrance half buried in sand. The carvings above it pulsed faintly in the moonlight, the same pattern as the map. In here. She shoved him through, sealing the heavy door behind them with a symbol drawn in blood. The darkness inside was thick and silent. Only their breaths broke it. Mark leaned against the cold stone, his chest heaving. You call that surviving, he said, half laughing, half shaking. We're not dead yet, she replied. She turned toward him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. You humans run on fear and stubbornness. It's fascinating. You call it survival instinct, he muttered. You call it divine, she corrected, stepping closer. Your kind bleeds so easily, yet refuses to yield. Her gaze fell again to his throat. Even now, I can hear it calling. He froze. Don't, he warned. Her smile was faint, predatory. If I meant to drain you, human, I would have done so long ago. Then what do you want? He demanded. To see what kind of creature wakes a god without trembling, she said. To see if humanity remembers how to fight for something greater than itself. She walked past him, her fingers trailing across the stone carvings. They lit faintly beneath her touch, illuminating the chamber, a vast cavern filled with dormant machines that pulsed like sleeping hearts. This was once the sanctum, she said quietly. The place where my kind fell. Fell? He asked. We ruled, she said. We fed. But we forgot balance. The covenant bound us, to protect what we had nearly destroyed. She looked back at him, eyes glowing gold against the darkness. You, human, are the first to break that seal in 10,000 cycles. Which means the covenant has chosen you. Chosen me for what? To finish what we started, she said. To restore the balance, or end it. He stared at her, words failing him. I'm not your savior, he said finally. I'm just a guy who got lost in the wrong ruins. Then perhaps, she said, you were exactly who the world was waiting for. She turned, motioning toward the vast machines that lined the chamber walls. Tomorrow, when the suns rise, the others will awaken. They will smell your blood and come for you. But for tonight, She stopped, her expression unreadable. You will rest. I will keep watch. You trust me enough to sleep near me? He asked cautiously. Her lips curved. No, she said. But I am curious enough to risk it. He exhaled, lowering himself onto a patch of warm stone. You never told me your name, he said. Names are power, she replied. But tonight, you may call me Seraph. He nodded, exhaustion finally catching up with him. Then good night, Seraph. She tilted her head slightly. You humans always need words to mark endings. Strange. It's called being polite. And unnecessary, she murmured, turning away. He watched her for a long while, the flicker of lamplight glinting off her armor, the quiet strength in her posture, the stillness that spoke of centuries. As sleep claimed him, he thought he saw her glance back once, her golden eyes softer, thoughtful. When he finally drifted off, the last thing he heard was her whispering something in her own tongue, a sound that might have been a warning or a promise. When Mark awoke, the air inside the chamber was cold enough to sting his lungs. Faint threads of light filtered through cracks in the stone ceiling, revealing dust motes swirling like fireflies. For a moment, he thought the night's encounter had been a fever dream brought on by exhaustion. But then he saw her, Seraph, standing by the far wall, motionless, the faint golden glow of her eyes cutting through the gloom. She hadn't moved all night. Her posture was rigid, predatory stillness wrapped in elegance. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the quiet weight of command. You breathe loud, human. Guess that means I'm still alive, he muttered. For now, she said, turning toward him. The suns have risen. We must move before the air here thickens with death. He pushed himself upright, groaning as his muscles protested. Air thickens with death? The ruins are not empty, she replied. They feed on memory. Too long in their shadow, and even the living begin to fade. He frowned. You're telling me this place eats souls? Not souls, she said. Essence. Energy. Whatever word your science uses to describe the invisible. She moved past him, running her fingers along the carvings that lined the walls. As her touch passed, faint symbols ignited, glowing with crimson light. These machines were built to draw it out, what my kind once called vitalis. They sustained our cities, our armies, our immortality. She looked back at him. Until they consumed everything else. Sounds like you were gods playing engineer, he said. We were children playing hunger, she corrected. And we were very good at it. They emerged from the sanctum into the desert again, the light of Daratha's twin suns blazing white against endless sand. The ruins behind them shimmered faintly, their spires reaching toward the heavens like fingers frozen mid-prayer. Mark shielded his eyes. Where are we going? North, she said. There is a place where the Covenant's pulse still beats. If we are to understand why it chose you, we must go there. He fell into step beside her, though his boots sank deep into the shifting dunes. You keep talking about this covenant like it's alive. It is, she said. A pact sealed with blood and light. When it bound us, it bound the world itself. Sounds poetic, he said. And dangerous. All things worth remembering are both, she replied. Her tone was calm, but her eyes kept scanning the horizon, wary. We are being followed, she said suddenly. He froze, instinctively reaching for his sidearm. Those things from last night? Not the same, she said. These are awake. Hunters. A shiver ran down his spine. Any advice? Don't die. She drew her blade, its edge humming with faint red energy. The sand behind them shifted, then erupted. Black shapes burst from beneath the surface, moving with inhuman speed. Mark fired twice, his shots punching through the nearest creature's chest. It didn't fall. They don't die easy, he shouted. Then aim where it matters, she snapped, slicing through one with a fluid motion. The creatures screamed, a high, metallic sound, and the air grew heavy with the scent of burning iron. Run, she ordered. They sprinted across the dunes, the monsters surging after them like living shadows. He could feel their heat at his back, their claws raking the sand inches from his boots. Ahead, the terrain shifted, the dunes giving way to jagged obsidian ridges, the ground fractured and unstable. This way! Sereth leapt across a narrow crevice, landing gracefully on the far side. Mark followed, barely keeping his footing. You fight like prey, she said, glancing back. You talk like someone who's never bled, he shot back. On the contrary, she said, striking another down. I have drowned in it. They reached the edge of a canyon. Far below, molten rivers glowed faintly, lighting the chasm in red-gold veins. We jump, she said. Are you insane? Completely. She leapt without hesitation, vanishing into the heat haze. He swore under his breath, then followed. The fall stole his breath, but he landed hard on a ledge, rolling painfully before coming to rest near her. She stood already, unshaken. You humans are slow learners, she said. You vampires have terrible travel plans, he gasped. She almost smiled. Then let us make the next one better. The sound of the pursuing creatures grew faint above them. For now, they were safe. The canyon stretched deep, winding toward an underground passage lit by strange bioluminescent fungi. The walls shimmered with veins of crystal, humming faintly with energy. This place feels alive, Mark said. It is, Sereth replied. The world itself became our tomb. She paused, touching one of the glowing veins. These are echoes, remnants of the Covenant's first fire. The deeper we go, the closer we come to its heart. They continued downward, the air cooling, the hum deepening. You still haven't told me why me, he said after a while. Of all the people who could have stumbled here, why does the universe choose the idiot with a flashlight? Because, she said softly, you touched the map without fear. Fearless blood calls to power. He gave a short laugh. You keep saying blood like it's destiny. It is currency, she corrected. Language. Memory. Power. It tells the universe who we are. And what's mine saying? She stopped, her gaze turning distant. That you have seen death and refused it. He frowned. How would you? I taste it, she said. In your scent. You have lost, yet you carry no surrender. That is rare among your kind. He didn't know how to answer that. They walked in silence until they reached a vast chamber, the walls covered in murals depicting towering figures with glowing eyes, their hands reaching toward the stars. Your people painted this, he asked. My ancestors, she said. We were not always monsters. She stepped closer to one mural, her fingertips tracing a figure kneeling before a blazing orb. We believed the Covenant would make us eternal. It did. But eternity has no mercy. Mark studied her face, catching something beneath the hardened exterior. A flicker of regret. You sound like you miss being mortal. Mortality is a curse, she said. But it gives life its shape. So why cling to immortality? Because losing everything you love teaches you to fear endings, she said. Even when they're deserved. The confession hung in the dim air, heavy and unguarded. For a moment, the predator's mask slipped, and he saw not a goddess or monster, but someone tired of surviving. Before he could speak, the ground trembled. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. They followed us, she hissed. The wall behind them cracked, revealing shadowed figures pouring through. There's too many, he shouted. Then we make our stand, she said, her eyes blazing gold. Together. The fight was chaos. Sereth moved like lightning, her blade carving arcs of crimson light. Mark fired until his weapon overheated, then swung it like a club, striking anything that came close. The air filled with shrieks and the metallic tang of alien blood. One creature lunged for him, too fast to dodge. Before it struck, Sereth was there, driving her blade through its chest. The creature collapsed, dissolving into black smoke. You owe me again, she said, breathless. I'll start a list, he managed. The floor beneath them cracked further, a molten glow spreading along the seams. "The chamber's collapsing," he shouted. She looked around, eyes narrowing. There! A fissure opened near the far wall, revealing a tunnel filled with faint light. They ran for it as the ground split behind them, molten stone swallowing the fallen creature's whole. They emerged into a cavern unlike anything he'd ever seen. A lake of liquid light stretched before them, its surface rippling with energy. Pillars of crystal rose from the water, humming with ancient resonance. Sereth stopped at the edge, awe flickering in her gaze. "This is it," she whispered. "The pulse of the Covenant." The air vibrated with power, tugging at the edges of Mark's mind. He felt it, alive, aware, calling to him. "It's reacting to you," Sereth said, stepping closer. "It remembers your blood. And what happens if I touch it?" "You will know truth," she said. "Or you will cease." "Great odds," he muttered. She turned to him. "You fear death. Only dying for nothing," he said. "Then don't," she replied, her tone soft but fierce. "Whatever happens, don't let go." He hesitated only a moment before stepping forward. The moment his hand touched the water, light exploded outward. His mind flooded with images, worlds burning, gods weeping, the birth of stars. He saw the Covenant formed, a pact sealed between mortals and immortals to keep balance in a universe that devoured itself. He saw Sereth's people rise and fall, their hunger twisting purpose into curse. And at the end of it all, he saw her, alone in darkness, waiting for a voice that would wake her. When the vision faded, he was on his knees, trembling. Sereth knelt beside him, her expression unreadable. "You saw," she said. "I saw too much," he whispered. "Then you understand," she said. "The Covenant has chosen again." "Chosen for what?" he asked. "To decide whether my kind deserves to return," she said softly. "And whether yours deserves to survive." The glow of the Covenant's lake still shimmered on the walls when Mark finally caught his breath. His hands trembled where the light had touched him. Faint threads of gold pulsed just beneath his skin, weaving patterns that shifted with every heartbeat. The air around him vibrated like a living current, soft whispers brushing the edge of thought. Across the chamber, Sereth stood in silence, her eyes fixed on him with an expression he couldn't decipher, equal parts reverence and dread. "It accepted you," she said at last. "The pulse does not show itself to the unworthy." He managed a weak laugh. "Define worthy. Because I feel like I just got electrocuted by God." Her gaze darkened. "You touched the memory of creation. Few can bear it and remain sane." "Guess I'm not most people," he muttered. "No," she said softly. "You are not." She approached slowly, the reflection of the glowing lake dancing across her crimson skin. "What did it show you?" she asked. "Everything," he said hoarsely. "Your people, the Covenant, the hunger." His voice faltered as he met her eyes. "And you?" Something flickered across her face, a fleeting vulnerability quickly masked by calm. "Then you saw what we were. And what you lost," he said quietly. Her jaw tightened. "Do not mistake knowledge for understanding." "I'm trying to," he said. "But it's hard to process billions of years of history in 5 minutes." "Time bends differently within the pulse," she said. "It shows truth without mercy." "Yeah, I noticed," he said. "Especially the part where your kind devoured their own world." Her glare was sharp enough to cut. "Careful, human." "You said you wanted truth," he said evenly. "Don't blame me for looking at it." For a long moment, silence filled the chamber, heavy as stone. Then, finally, Sereth exhaled. "You are bold," she said. "Reckless. Perhaps that is why the Covenant chose you." "Or maybe it just has a sense of humor," he said. Her lips curved faintly despite herself. "Humor," she murmured. "A trait your species wields as both weapon and shield. We had no such thing. Perhaps that was our first downfall." She looked toward the lake again, her expression distant. "When we forged the Covenant, We believed we were binding hunger to purpose. Instead, we bound ourselves to longing without end. Longing for what? He asked. For what we destroyed, she said. For warmth. For mortality. For the brief, beautiful pain of being alive. Her golden eyes flicked toward him. Your kind still carries it. That ache. That defiance. It's why the Covenant answered your blood. He frowned. You make it sound like being humans some kind of cosmic anomaly. Perhaps it is, she said. You burn so brightly, knowing the fire will consume you. That's just what living is, he said. We don't get to choose forever, so we make now count. Her gaze lingered on him for a long time. And yet, she said softly, you fear death as much as we do. Only because we have something to lose, he replied. Do you? She asked. Do you have something to lose, Mark of Earth? The question hit harder than he expected. For a moment, he saw flashes of his old life, the comrades he'd buried, the stars he'd chased, the ghosts he'd never stopped running from. I did once, he said quietly. Maybe I still do. Her expression softened, just a fraction. Then perhaps there is hope for us both. The ground trembled beneath them, a deep, resonant rumble that sent ripples across the lake. The light dimmed slightly, shifting from gold to crimson. Saratha's head snapped up. They've found us, she hissed. The hunters? He asked. Worse, she said. The keepers. Let me guess, they're not friendly? They are the Covenant's guardians, she said, drawing her blade. They protect its balance by destroying whatever threatens it. Including me. And you. A low, guttural sound echoed through the cavern, followed by the metallic clang of approaching footsteps. From the far tunnel, figures emerged, tall, skeletal beings forged of obsidian and light, their eyes burning white. Each step they took left molten imprints in the stone. Back away, Sarath ordered. The pulse may still recognize you as sanctified. And you. I am the curse it remembers. Before he could protest, the keepers moved. The first one raised an arm, light spearing toward them in a blinding beam. Sarath countered instantly, her blade flaring as it deflected the blast, sending shards of energy across the walls. Move! She shouted. He ducked behind a pillar as another beam struck, vaporizing a chunk of stone. The cavern filled with light and smoke. Through it all, Sarath danced like lightning, her strikes fast and precise. But for every keeper she struck down, two more appeared. We can't stay here, Mark shouted. Then we change the odds, she said. She slashed her palm, blood glowing crimson as it struck the lake. The pulse roared in response, its surface boiling with power. What are you doing? He demanded. Calling in a debt, she said. The Covenant still owes me one miracle. The light from the lake erupted upward, engulfing the keepers in waves of radiance. The ground shook violently, forcing Mark to his knees. Saratha's form blurred, her silhouette merging with the glow. For a moment, he saw her as she must have once been, a being of pure energy, radiant and terrible. When the light faded, the keepers were gone. The cavern fell silent, except for the faint hum of the pulse. Sarath staggered, her armor cracked, blood seeping from the seams. Mark rushed to her side. You're hurt. A wound, she said, breath unsteady. Nothing more. You're bleeding, he said. That's not nothing. She looked at the blood glimmering on her hand, faintly luminous. I had forgotten what it felt like, she murmured. Pain. He tore a strip from his sleeve, pressing it against the wound. Welcome back to being mortal. Her eyes met his. You say that as though it's a kindness. They found refuge in a small alcove above the lake, the glow beneath them casting their shadows high against the wall. Sarath sat in silence, staring at her blood-stained hand. They will come again, she said. The Covenant does not forgive trespass. Then we'll stay one step ahead, he said. You think survival is strategy, she said. But sometimes it's simply defiance. Then I'm an expert, he said. Defiance is kind of a human specialty. Her gaze softened slightly. You are difficult to categorize, human. One moment fragile, the next infuriatingly stubborn. You say that like it's a compliment. Perhaps it is, she said. You remind me of the first ones we made. You made humans? No, she said. But we dreamed of you. We dreamed of creatures who could choose kindness in a world built for cruelty. He stared at her, unsure how to respond. The faint light caught her features, softening the sharp edges of her face. For the first time, she didn't look like a predator, she looked tired. Why are you telling me this? He asked quietly. Because you carry what we lost, she said. Because when I look at you, I remember what we were before hunger. Her voice lowered. And because I do not know how this ends. Neither do I, he said. But maybe that's what makes it worth it. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. You would risk everything for a cause you do not understand? I'd risk everything for someone who deserves better than what she's been given, he said. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Her eyes widened faintly. Be careful, human. We do not speak love lightly. Who said anything about love? You did, she whispered. Even if you don't know it yet. For a long time, neither spoke. The pulse's glow dimmed to a faint shimmer, painting them both in gold and shadow. Finally, she stood. Rest while you can, she said. We move when the sun's set. Where to? The tomb of silence, she said. It is where the Covenant's voice can be heard by those it marks. You mean me? Yes, she said. And perhaps me, if it will still listen. He nodded slowly. Then we'll go together. Her expression softened, the faintest trace of a smile crossing her lips. Together, she echoed. As she turned to leave, he caught the faint scent of iron and ash in the air, and realized for the first time that beneath all her power and terror, Sereth bled like anyone else. The thought unsettled him, and gave him hope. The sons of Dareth, 9 were falling behind the black dunes when Sereth and Mark began their ascent toward the northern cliffs. The landscape shifted from molten sands to jagged stone ridges, the horizon glowing faintly red as dust storms brewed in the distance. Every step was heavier than the last. Sereth's wounds had sealed, but her energy burned dimmer. The faint light under her skin now dulled to a soft ember. You're slowing down, Mark said, glancing at her. I bleed power each time I fight, she admitted. This body was not meant to endure so long without the pulse. Then why keep going? Because if I stop, she said, everything I fought for ends with me. He frowned, watching the tension in her movements. You sound like someone carrying an entire world's guilt. I am, she said quietly. And now, you share it. They stopped when night fully settled. The air cooled sharply, the stars above shifting in alien constellations, webs of light stretching across infinite darkness. They made camp near a cluster of basalt pillars, their rough surfaces etched with the faint carvings of forgotten language. Mark lit a small plasma torch, its glow soft against the wind. You ever rest? He asked. Rest invites memory, she said. And memory invites madness. That's poetic, he said. It's experience. She lowered herself against the stone, folding her legs beneath her. When my kind fell, we did not die in fire. We simply remembered too much. Every face, every hunger, every scream. We became the echoes we once feared. Her gaze lifted toward the stars. Immortality is not endless life, it's endless recollection. Then maybe mortality's mercy, he said. You forget just enough to keep going. Her eyes flicked toward him. Perhaps. But you also forget what made you divine. The wind picked up, carrying sand that glittered faintly in the starlight. Mark leaned back, staring at the alien sky. You ever wonder what it was like before all this? Before gods and hunger and pacts? She considered. There was a time before memory, when existence was quiet. My people feared that silence, so we filled it with creation. You humans call that impulse curiosity. And you. We called it defiance. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. Tell me, human, what drives your kind to reach beyond your world? To risk everything just to touch the unknown? He smiled faintly. Because we can't stand not knowing. Because sometimes, when you're small, the only way to matter is to reach higher. Her eyes lingered on him for a long time, glowing softly. That, she said, is the most dangerous truth of all. When dawn came, it painted the sky in bands of violet and gold. They continued their climb until the cliffs broke open into a vast plateau. There, carved into the rock like a wound, lay a colossal doorway, its surface engraved with spiraling runes that pulsed faintly with ancient energy. The air was colder here, sharp with metallic taste. The tomb of silence, Sereth said. It waits for the voice of the marked. You mean the covenant's voice? Yes. It will speak through you. But its truth has weight. Be certain you wish to hear it. I came this far, he said. Might as well meet the thing that ruined both our lives. Her mouth curved slightly. Humans and their humor, she murmured. Even before gods, you find ways to mock fear. It's how we survive, he said. She reached out, placing her hand on the stone. The runes flared bright crimson, the ground trembling. Then survive this, she whispered, as the doors groaned open. Inside was not darkness, but light, cold, endless, blinding. The tomb stretched beyond comprehension, a vast chamber of hovering crystal monoliths suspended over a void. The air hummed with layered voices, thousands speaking as one. Mark's breath caught as he stepped forward, weightless on invisible ground. What is this? Memory, Sereth said. Every oath, every life, every failure of the covenant, preserved in eternal thought. He turned slowly, the voices brushing against his consciousness. Words, no, sensations, poured through him. Grief, triumph, hunger, love. It was overwhelming. It's like they're alive, he whispered. They are. The covenant was not a pact written on stone, it was written in blood and mind. She gestured toward the largest monolith, pulsing gold in the center. That is its heart. When you touch it, it will answer. He approached it slowly, each step echoing like thunder in silence. The surface of the monolith shifted like liquid glass, showing faint reflections of faces he didn't recognize, some human, some not. He reached out a trembling hand and made contact. Instantly, light exploded outward, and the voices converged into one. Bearer of mortal blood, it said, the sound resonating inside his bones. You have awakened what sleeps between life and hunger. Speak your truth, and the covenant shall judge. His throat tightened. My truth. You saw our fall, it said. You know the hunger that ended us. Tell us, does creation deserve to continue? The question struck him like a blow. He saw flashes of earth, wars, greed, beauty, laughter. Humanity's brilliance and its cruelty intertwined. We're flawed, he said finally. We make mistakes. We destroy. But we also rebuild. We love. We learn. If creation ends, so does the chance to change. The light pulsed brighter. Change, the voice repeated. The cycle consumes itself, yet you would let it burn anew? Yeah, he said. Because maybe this time, we do better. For a long moment, the light was still. Then the voice shifted, softer now. You carry defiance like fire. Your kind was not meant to shape eternity, yet you do so with each heartbeat. Perhaps that is the answer we have forgotten. The chamber darkened slightly. Sereth stepped forward, her face illuminated by the fading glow. What did it say? She asked. That it remembers, he said quietly. And that maybe it forgives. She stared at him for a long time, disbelief flickering in her gaze. Forgiveness, she whispered. For us. For everyone, he said. But even as he spoke, the monolith shuddered, its light fracturing. Cracks of darkness spread across its surface. "What's happening?" "You have undone the balance," she said, eyes wide. Forgiveness was never part of its design. The monolith shattered. A wave of raw energy surged outward, throwing them both to the ground. The air screamed, the voices twisting into chaos. Sereth struggled to her feet, reaching for him. "We must go now. You said this place was eternal." "It was," she shouted. "Until you changed it." They ran toward the entrance as the entire chamber collapsed in on itself, light and shadow folding together like imploding stars. Mark felt heat sear across his back as debris rained down. Sereth caught his arm, dragging him forward, her own body shielding his. The doorway ahead flickered, the outside world warping. "Hold on," she yelled. They dove through just as the tomb exploded behind them, a shockwave of light tearing across the plateau. When the dust cleared, the doorway was gone, only scorched stone remained. Mark coughed, rolling onto his back. "Tell me that wasn't my fault." "Everything that lives bears fault," Sereth said, standing over him. Her armor was cracked again, the faint light under her skin flickering weakly. "You did what none of us could. You gave the Covenant a choice." "And what did it choose?" he asked. She looked up at the sky, where, for the first time in millennia, the twin suns flared brighter, casting the desert in new light. "It chose to change," she said. "The world will not remember me, but it will remember you." "You talk like it's over," he said. "It is for me," she said softly. "The Covenant's bond sustained my existence. When it broke, so did my claim to eternity." "No," he said, pushing himself up. "We'll find another way." "There is no other way, human." Her gaze softened. "But I am glad it was you." He felt the weight of her words settle deep in his chest. "You saved me more times than I can count," he said. "I owed you that much." "You owe me nothing," she said. "But I will take a truth from you, before I fade." "Anything," he said. "When you saw my kind's fall, when you saw what we became, did you hate me?" He met her golden eyes, shaking his head. "No," he said. "I pitied you. But more than that, I understood you." For a moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the soft wind over sand. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled, a small, fragile thing that held centuries of sorrow and grace. "Then perhaps," she said quietly, "we were not monsters after all." The light within her flared once more, bright and warm. "What happens now?" he whispered. "You live," she said. "And I sleep." Her hand brushed his cheek, cool, trembling. Then, with a sigh that sounded almost like relief, Seretha's body dissolved into threads of light that drifted upward, scattering into the dawn. Mark stood alone on the plateau, the rising suns painting the desert gold. He felt the warmth of her touch linger on his skin, faint as starlight. "You don't get to just vanish," he murmured. But the wind carried no answer. Only silence, and the faint, rhythmic pulse beneath the earth, softer now, but still alive. The desert lay quiet beneath Dareth Nine's twin suns, the dunes stretching endlessly, golden and silent. Mark stood alone on the plateau, the remnants of the shattered tomb of silence still glowing faintly beneath the sand. The pulse of the Covenant had faded, leaving a subtle hum beneath his feet, a heartbeat of the world itself. Seretha's light had vanished, her presence reduced to memory and warmth lingering on his skin. He could still feel it in the faint patterning beneath his own veins, the residual imprint of her essence. She had given him a fragment of eternity, and in return, he carried her memory as a living weight. He breathed deeply, tasting the dry, metallic air, and realized he had survived. Not unscathed, not unchanged, but alive. Mark began the long walk back to the camp, the terrain unfamiliar now. Every ridge, every dune, felt charged, as though the desert itself remembered the events of the night. He passed ruins half buried in sand, relics of the old Covenant civilization glowing faintly before fading into the dust. Each shimmer felt like a reminder that even in the absence of life, energy and memory endured. He thought of Sereth, of her presence, her words, her eyes blazing gold in the darkness of the tomb. She had not just saved him. She had shown him the pulse of a world older than humanity, older than his own comprehension. And she had trusted him with it, a responsibility far beyond his imagining. The camp appeared below him, small and fragile against the vast desert. Smoke rose from the early cooking fires. The first explorers were stirring, unaware of what had transpired in the northern ruins. Mark descended carefully, every footstep measured. When he reached the tents, he paused, taking in the familiar sights of his world, the metal poles, the canvas flaps, the scattered tools. Everything seemed mundane, yet impossible now. The events of the past night had rewritten his sense of scale and consequence. A single human could awaken gods, confront legends, and survive. And he had done all of it, guided by the hand of someone not entirely human. Inside his tent, he collapsed onto the cot, exhaustion pressing him into the fabric. The air smelled faintly of resin and sand, familiar and grounding. He reached for the small pouch of water, drinking deeply, but it tasted flat against the echo of otherworldly blood and light. He closed his eyes, trying to reconcile the vivid images in his mind. The pulse's golden luminescence, the keepers falling, Sereth's blade slicing through impossible shadows, and finally, her transformation into threads of pure light. Each memory resonated as though still alive, and he realized he could no longer separate the past from the present. It was a part of him now, a truth embedded in his very being. The human heart, he understood, could carry more than mere flesh, it could bear legacy. Days passed, though Mark lost track of time. Every moment was consumed with reflection and vigilance. Occasionally, he would feel a flicker beneath his skin, a reminder that the pulse had imprinted on him, that he carried a fragment of the alien vampire woman who had saved his life. He experimented, touching glowing fragments in the sand, noticing the faint hum echoing in resonance with his heartbeat. The desert seemed quieter now, more responsive, attuned to his presence. It whispered faintly in shapes and currents he barely understood. The balance of the old covenant had shifted, and he had become the keeper of that fragile harmony. It was a burden and a gift, terrifying in its scope. Yet he felt alive, more intensely than ever before, because he now understood the magnitude of choice and consequence. The camp eventually gathered around him, worried faces questioning his absence. "Where have you been?" one of the researchers demanded. "I was exploring," he said simply, ignoring the faint tremor in his voice. He realized words were inadequate. No description could convey the vastness of the pulse, the weight of Sereth's presence, the hunger and the mercy intertwined in that alien consciousness. He had survived where others would have perished, and he had been marked by something eternal. The group eventually accepted his explanation, though suspicion lingered in their eyes. They could feel, somehow, that he had returned altered, though they couldn't comprehend why. Humanity rarely understood its own proximity to the divine, and he had touched it directly. At night, he returned to the northern plateau, climbing the dunes where the tomb had once stood. The ruins had cooled into faintly luminescent dust. He knelt there, placing a hand upon the sand, remembering Sereth's voice, her touch, and the way she had risked herself for him. "You're gone," he whispered. "But not lost." He traced a line across the glowing dust, imagining the path they had taken together. He realized that in a universe of incomprehensible forces, fleeting mortality could be a gift as powerful as immortality. She had shown him that. Her presence, though absent in form, endured in essence, like the echo of a heartbeat carried on the wind. Months passed, and the world adjusted to the absence of the keepers and the pulse of the covenant that had reshaped the desert. Humanity continued its explorations, and Mark led expeditions with newfound insight. Every choice was measured, tempered by the memory of the tomb and the pulse that had tested him. He taught others caution and courage, conveying lessons in unspoken ways that transcended language. His experience became a legend among the explorers, stories told in hushed tones around fires. They spoke of a human who had touched alien divinity and survived, guided by the hands of a vampire woman who was more than myth. And he carried that truth silently, unshared except with the sands and stars that had witnessed it. One evening, years later, he returned to the plateau alone. The suns had set, and the twin moons bathed the desert in silver light. He felt it again, the faintest pulse beneath the ground, almost imperceptible but persistent. Mark knelt, closing his eyes, and imagined Saratha's presence beside him. The memory of her scent, of blood and power mingled, was vivid in his mind. He reached out instinctively, and the ground beneath him shimmered faintly, almost as if responding. "I'm still here," he whispered. "I remember." And in that quiet, endless desert, he felt her essence align with his heartbeat. The past and present intertwined, mortality and eternity danced together. He smiled, understanding that even absence could be a companion. She had given him life in its most potent form, a connection that transcended being, a bond of memory, defiance, and shared survival. Mark eventually returned to the settlement, his gait steady, his mind clear. His reputation had grown, not as a soldier or a scientist, but as a keeper of truths that few could grasp. Occasionally, he would gaze across the dunes, imagining her silhouette among the sand, the glow of her golden eyes observing, amused, protective, eternal. He realized he had been changed in a way nothing else could achieve. Humanity's resilience, their stubborn defiance, and the unexpected bond with a being from another species had taught him the depth of life's possibilities. Courage, he now knew, was not in weapons or victories, but in choices that honor others and risk everything for the unknown. At night, when the camp slept, Mark sometimes returned to the plateau. The dunes were silent but alive beneath his feet, carrying the faint resonance of the pulse. He would kneel and place his hand against the sand, feeling the echo of Saratha's presence. "You were divine," he whispered, "and so was your blood." A wind stirred, carrying faint scent and memory. The desert whispered back, soft and enduring. He closed his eyes and felt the warmth of her essence mingle with the night, unbroken by distance or time. He knew he would carry her with him always, not as fear, not as longing, but as a reminder that connection, defiance, and courage could survive even the most incomprehensible forces of the universe. Years passed, yet the desert remained, indifferent but alive. Explorers came and went, building their settlements, charting maps, and leaving faint traces of their presence. But Mark, now older, still returned to the northern plateau. There, the light of the twin moons reflected off faint crystals hidden beneath the sand, echoing the pulse of a covenant long silenced yet remembered. And every time he knelt, he felt it, the faint warmth of Saratha's blood, her defiance, her trust. A legacy not written in words or monuments, but in life itself, in the choices of a human and the memory of a vampire woman who had dared to enter a tent, whisper, and change the fate of worlds. Mark never forgot the first night, nor the scent, nor the warmth of golden eyes that had looked upon him as more than prey. He knew that survival was not the same as living. Life demanded connection, courage, and the willingness to confront forces beyond comprehension. And in the silent desert under alien moons, Mark smiled for the first time in years, understanding fully that the bond they shared, the pulse, the blood, the memory, was not gone. It had only changed shape. Eternity had not ended, it had transformed, carried forward by the heartbeat of a human who dared to reach for the divine and lived to tell the tale.